Welcome to the Kill Count, where we tally up the victims in all our favorite horror movies. I'm James A. Janice, and today we're finally starting what has been the single most requested series in Kill Count history, Halloween, John Carpenter's 1978 film that ignited the slasher subgenre. As I've said on this show before, Halloween was not the first slasher ever made, but it was the one that captured everyone's imagination. After producer Irwin Yablans came up with the movie's title and a simple premise involving babysitters, co-writers and producers John Carpenter and Deborah Hill set out to make horror history with a laughably small budget of only $320,000, provided by Yablans and the quote-unquote grandfather of Halloween, Mustafa Akkad. There are lots of reasons this movie went so far on so little, from the iconic haunting score composed by Carpenter himself, to the suburban setting that made the audience feel as vulnerable as the victims they were watching, to the memorable performances by a 20-year-old Jamie Lee Curtis and the original Ernst Stavro Blofeld Donald Pleasence. But above all else, Halloween succeeded because of its blank-faced stalker Michael Myers, also known as The Shape. Played by filmmaker Nick Castle for a measly $25 a day, the man in the modified William Shatner mask terrified audiences and kicked off the first of the horror genre's royal franchises. Over the next couple of months, I'll be covering all of the Halloweens available on home video, meaning 10 installments and 4 different timelines. On October 19th, an 11th film will be released, which will start a 5th timeline for the series. But we'll have to wait for the Blu-ray for it to be on the Kill Count. Don't worry though, even without that latest installment, we're in for a crazy ride. I'll guide you through the franchise as Sam Loomis becomes a shrieking madman, as Michael's origin becomes tied up in the occult, and all the times that the series tries to reinvent itself, whether that's as a couple of hip millennial horror comedies, a low-class white trash hellbilly saga, or a Irish toy maker selling deadly Halloween masks. But before we get into all that, we gotta go back to Haddonfield, Illinois and count the kills that started it all. The movie begins with a jack-o'-lantern and a title card. Right away, even the opening credits are iconic, since they're backed by that dope-ass Halloween theme, and because when it zooms in on the pumpkin's eye and nose, it looks like Michael himself holding a knife. Cool! After that, we're in Haddonfield, Illinois, on Halloween night 1963, in a first-person POV shot similar to the one that opened Black Christmas. The POV shots in Halloween were done with the recently invented Steadicam technology by cinematographer Dean Cundy, who would go on to shoot blockbusters such as the Back to the Future trilogy and Jurassic Frickin' Park. We watch as our audience surrogate peeps in on a couple making out before they head upstairs for more heavy petting. After a stop at the kitchen drawer where Deborah Hill's hand grabs a butcher knife, the first-person view sees the dude putting his shirt back on and leaving the house. It's only been a minute, dude. Was that one of those never happens to me situations? The camera heads upstairs and grabs a clown mask from the floor, obfuscating our view as it walks into the very open bedroom of the topless Judith Myers. Girl, topless hairbrushing is the best, I'm sure, but maybe close the door for it, or else you risk this happening.
Michael!
Yep, this is Michael Myers' first kill, his older sister Judith, and he's such a noob at murder that he has to keep checking his stabbing form while he kills her. You're doing fine, Mikey, don't worry. When he's done, Judith is left as a topless bloody corpse lying on her bedroom floor. Michael heads back downstairs and out of the house right as his parents pull up. The extended first-person shot finally ends when they demask him and then just kinda stand there for an awkwardly long time without saying anything or emoting as the camera pulls away. Classic cold open though. Jump to Smith's Grove in the same state, now 15 years later on Halloween Eve. 'Twas a dark and stormy night when Dr. Sam Loomis, played by the masterful Donald Pleasence, joined chain-smoking nurse Marion Chambers to go to the Smith's Grove Sanitarium. They're going to pick up Michael Myers, who Loomis keeps referring to as an it, and transfer him to another facility. But things take a turn for the creepy when they see that the Smith's Grove inmates are out and about, getting all wet. Instead of being concerned about them catching hypothermia like a real doctor would, Loomis presses forward and hops out to open the hospital gate. That's when Michael Myers hops on top of Marion's car and grabs her by the face, tormenting her until she flees from her vehicle that he promptly Grand Theft Autos. Michael must have been top of the class in the Smith's Grove driver's ed program. The next day, back in Haddonfield, we meet Laurie Strode, a modestly dressed high schooler played by Jamie Lee Curtis. Her Halloween night plans involve babysitting this little kid Tommy Doyle, who's all sorts of scared of the abandoned Myers house. Laurie has a key to the place because her dad's a local realtor, but as she leaves it under the mat, she doesn't notice that she's being watched by a shape inside, and a shape outside. Must be one of those interior-exterior shapes. The shape continues its voyeuristic tendencies when Laurie's in school, staring at her from behind Nurse Chambers' car parked across the street. But while Laurie's busy being an SMRT smart girl, he vanishes into thin air. Which way did he go, Laurie? Which way did he go? In Smith's Grove, Dr. Terrence Wynn, a colleague of Loomis's, blames the small doctor for Michael's escape and says it's unlikely that Myers is headed to Haddonfield 150 miles away.
For God's sakes, he can't drive a car. He was doing very well last night. Maybe someone around here gave him lessons.
On his way to Haddonfield, Haddonfield, Loomis stops at a payphone to warn the Haddonfield police, and that's where he notices a truck on the side of the road. He finds evidence that Michael was there, but runs off before seeing our second body on the kill count, this poor truck driver who Michael apparently killed and stripped for that classic blue jumpsuit. Damn man, stealing cars and clothes? Michael's just as much a thief as he is a murderer. Lori walks home with her cheerleader friend Linda, played by PJ Soles, who's totally got a problem saying totally all the fucking time.
Totally and totally.
They're joined by Andy Brackett, played by Nancy Kyes, who credited stage name was, interestingly enough, Nancy Loomis. Michael Myers rolls by in his station wagon at a nice slow stalkery pace, but that doesn't stop Annie, the sheriff's daughter, from playing citizen cop.
Hey jerk! Speed kills!
Michael stops his car threateningly, but after a pregnant pause, just keeps on driving. He catches back up with them later on the walk home when he's standing behind a bush staring at Lori and Annie, but when Annie goes to confront him, he's disappeared once again. Michael does that a lot. He does it some more after Lori gets home to her room decorated with smart person stuff. She sees him outside by the clothesline, then somehow, without her gaze ever breaking, he just disappears. That one doesn't make any sense to me, but okay, we get it. He's a creepy stalker. Meanwhile, Dr. Loomis arrives in Haddonfield and goes to the cemetery, only to find that Judith Myers' gravestone has been removed, straight plucked from the ground.
She came home.
Later that day, Lori gets picked up by Andy, and they're having such a good time smoking a doob and listening to Blue Oyster Cult that they don't notice Michael tailing them in the Myers-mobile. He gives them some space when they pull over to talk to Andy's dad, Sheriff Brackett, who's checking out a hardware store burglary that sounds like a very specific hit.
All they took was some Halloween mask, a rope, and a couple of knives.
Wait, why did that hardware store have Halloween masks? Somehow Papa Brackett doesn't smell that dank weed in the car, so he waves the girls goodbye, right before Loomis shows up and introduces himself. Psst, Loomis, look behind you, dude! The shape you want is right behind you! Night comes and Sheriff Brackett takes Loomis to the Myers house, where it all went down 15 years ago. They find a dead dog off screen, the first of many pooches that Michael Myers will kill throughout the series.
He got hungry.
And, eat? Did he eat that dog corpse, or is that a metaphor, Loomy? During a tour of the house, Donald Pleasance gets to capital A act when he tells Brackett about Michael's psychiatric history.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes. The devil's eyes.
Yeah, some good acting. Now that it's nighttime, the teens of Haddonfield are out to make some babysitting bucks. Michael silently observes Annie as she gets to the house she's watching over, the Wallace family home, while just across the street at Tommy Doyle's house, Lori is already nice and cozy, shitting all over Tommy's taste in comic books. Annie calls Lori to tell her that she's arranged a date with our virginal final girl with the dude she's into named Ben Tramer. Pretty much every scene with Lori and her friends involves them telling her she needs to get laid, but I wanted to mention this combo in particular just because Ben Tramer comes back in a hilarious way next movie. Tommy looks out the window and sees the shape standing outside the Wallace home, but when he gets Lori to look, Mike's pulled his disappearing act again. Turns out he's gone around back to watch Annie take her shirt off after she spilled some butter on it. While he's peeping in, the Wallace family dog Lester comes across him and starts growling. Michael makes short work of the poor canine and kills him, but in case you're new here, I only put humanoids on the kill count. Sorry, Lester. Annie gets a call from her boyfriend Paul saying that his parents are gone and that it's bone o'clock, so she takes little Lindsay Wallace across the street to drop her off with Lori and Tommy. The kids immediately get to watching The Thing from Another World, a fun inclusion in hindsight since Carpenter would go on to make his own version of The Thing just 4 years later, which is still the best horror movie ever made. Come at me. Lori agrees to watch over Andy's charge while Andy takes a visit to Pound Town.
The old Girl Scout comes through again.
Annie never gets to fulfill her teenage desires though, because after she gets in the car to go pick up El Jerko, she's attacked by Michael Myers from the back seat. He strangles her in a lengthy silent scene with no noise except for his heavy breathing and the sounds of her struggle until she finally starts blaring the car horn in an effort to attract some help. That's when Michael cuts the kill short with a butcher knife, slitting her throat as Annie Brackett becomes the third member of our kill count. Michael may be good at killing discreetly, but he's got to work on his body disposal, since Tommy sees him from the window carrying that corpse under a bright porch light. Props for being able to open that door with no hands though, Mikey. You'd be great at one of those grocery delivery service jobs. In case you were having some unpleasant withdrawals from a lack of Loomis, we get a fun little scene wherein he scares some kids that had bullied Tommy earlier. They're outside the Myers house, daring each other to go touch it like friggin' Boo Radley lives there, when Loomis overhears their names and fucks with them.
Hey, Lonnie, Get your ass away from there.
Loomis is kind of a dick to kids. I love it. But sorry, back to horny teenagers. Linda and her boyfriend Bob roll up to the Wallace house so they can bang there while Annie keeps little Lindsay distracted. Of course, neither Annie nor Lindsay are home right now.
It's totally dark.
So they're content to just make out on a stranger's couch, way too distracted to see the shape standing mere feet away watching them. Later on, they call up Lori, who tells them that little Lindsay is gone for the night, so they escalate their debasement of the Wallace home to full-on fucking in the parents' bed. Also,